See, the dense crowd quivers through all its lengthy line as the boy beside the portal hastens forth to give the sign.
Missy.
With his little hands uplifted, Reese's dallying with his hair. Hark, with deep, clear intonation, breaks his young voice on the air. Imagine that you live in a time and place where a king an ocean away rules over you. That you decide to go to war to gain your own freedom. And that it could very well be that the fate of your new nation may rest in your hands at some point. Paul Revere's Ride by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow and Independence Bell, July 4th, 1776 by an unknown author. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. 'Twas the 18th of April in 75. Hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, "If the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft to the belfry arch of the North Church Tower as a signal bright. One, if by land, and two, if by sea, and I on the opposite shore will be, ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm, for the country folk to be up and to arm." Then he said good night, and with muffled oar, silently rowed towards the Charleston shore. And just as the moon rose over the bay, where swinging wide at her moorings lay the Somerset, British man of war, a phantom ship with each mast and spar across the moon like a prison bar, and a huge black hulk that was magnified by its own reflection in the tide. Meanwhile, his friend through alley and street wanders and watches with eager ears, till in the silence around him he hears the muster of men at the barrack door, the sound of arms and the tramp of feet, and the measured tread of the grenadiers marching down to their boats on the shore. And he climbed the tower of the Old North Church, and the wooden stairs with stealthy tread, to the belfry chamber overhead, and startled the pigeons from their perch on the somber rafters that round him made masses and moving shapes of shade by the trembling ladder steep and tall, to the highest window in the wall where he paused. Listen and look down a moment on the roofs of the town and the moonlight flowing over all. Suddenly, all his thoughts are bent on a shadowy something far away where the river winds to meet the bay. A line of black that bends and floats on the rising tide like a bridge of boats. Meanwhile, impatient to mount and ride, booted and spurred with heavy stride, on the opposite shore walked Paul Revere. Got his hat at his horse's side. Now he gazed at the landscape far and near, and then, impetuous, snapped the earth and tightened his saddle girth. He watched with eager search the belfry tower of the Old North Church. And as it rose above the graves of the hill, low and spectral and somber and still, and lo, as he looks at the belfry's height, a glimmer and then a gleam of light! He springs to the saddle, the bridle he turns, yet lingers and gazes till full in his sight a second lamp in the belfry burns. He has left the village and mounted the steep, and beneath him, tranquil and broad and deep, is the mystic meeting of the ocean tides. And under the alders that skirt its edge, now soft on the sand, now loud on the ledge, is heard the tramp of his steed as he rides. It was won by the village cock when he galloped into Lexington. He saw the gilded weathercock swing the moonlight as he passed, and the meeting house window, black and bare, gazed at him with a spectral glare, as if they already stood aghast at the bloody work they were to look upon. It was too by the village clock when he came to the bridge in Concord town. He heard the bleating of the flock and the twitter of the birds among the trees, and he felt the breath of the morning breeze blowing over the meadow brown. And one was safe, asleep in his bed. Who at the bridge would be the first to fall? Who that day would be lying dead, pierced by a British musket ball? You know the rest. In the books you have read how the British regulars fired and fled, how the farmers gave them ball for ball behind each fence and farmyard wall. chasing the redcoats down the lane, then crossing the fields to emerge again under the trees at the turn of the road, and only pausing to fire and reload. So through the night rode Paul Revere, and so through the night went his cry of alarm through every Middlesex village and farm. A cry of defiance, and not of fear. A voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, and a word which shall echo forevermore. For born on the night winds of the past, through all our history, to the last, in the moment of darkness and peril and need, the people will waken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed, and the midnight message of Paul Revere. There was a tumult in that city, in the quaint old Quaker town, and the streets were rife with people, pacing restless up and down. People gathered at the corners, where they whispered each to each, and the sweat stood on their temples with the earnestness of speech. As the bleak Atlantic current beat the wild Newfoundland shore, so they beat against the State House, so they surged against the door, till the mingling of their voices made the harmony profound, and the quiet street of Chestnut was all turbulent with sound. As they surged against the State House, all solemnly inside, sat the Continental Congress, truth and reason for their ride, or a simple scroll debating which, though simple it might be, yet would shake the cliffs of England with the thunders of the free. Far aloft in that high steeple sat the bellman, old and gray. He was weary of the tyrant and his iron-sceptred way, so he sat with one hand ready on the clapper of the bell, when his eye would catch the signal, the long-expected news to tell. See, the dense crowd quivers through all its lengthy line as the boy beside the portal hastens forth to give the sign. With his little hands uplifted, breezes dallying with his hair. Hark, with a deep, clear intonation, breaks his young voice on the air. Hushed, the people's swelling murmur, whilst the boy cries joyously, "Ring!" he shouts, "Ring, Grandpapa! Ring! Oh, ring for liberty!" Quickly, at the given signal, the old bellman lifts his hand. Forth he sends the good news, making iron music throughout the land. How they shouted, what rejoicing! How that old bell shook the air, to the clang of freedom ruffled the calmly gliding Delaware. That old State House bell is silent. Hushed now its clamorous tongue, but the spirit it awakened still is living ever young. And when we greet his smiling sunlight, on the 4th of each July, we will ne'er forget the bellman who, betwixt the earth and sky, rung out loudly, "Independence!" which, please God, shall never die.